Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for this Zoom media conference and Facebook live stream. Mayor Drew Dilkens and members of the City of Windsor's corporate leadership team will provide an update on municipal services under Step 3 of the Province of Ontario's reopening framework. We are also joined by members of the media and extend a warm welcome to all residents who have tuned in to watch our live Facebook broadcast. Mayor Dilkens will provide introductory remarks momentarily, followed by a presentation from our members of the panel. We'll conclude with opening the floor to questions from the media, and a reminder that participants turn your own microphone and camera on and off using the Zoom buttons in the left-hand corner of your screen. And media members, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom screen to request a question. Once the conversation has wrapped up, media members will be called on to ask questions and your microphone will be enabled then. Thank you for your attendance and participation today. I'll turn things over to Mayor Dilkens to start us off. Go ahead, Your Worship.
Well, thanks very much, Dana. Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here today and joined by Ray Mensur, who is our Acting Commissioner of Community Services. Shelby Askin-Hager is here, our Commissioner of Legal and Legislative Services. And of course, everyone knows Steve Lafferette. Chief Lafferette is our Fire Chief of Windsor Fire and Rescue Services. And like everyone, and I'm sure everyone on the line and everyone watching, I am absolutely thrilled that later this week, we will all be able to enter Step 3 of the Reopen Ontario framework, and that the restrictions that have closed up much of our local economy, they will be lifted. Bars and restaurants will be permitted to have clients indoors with capacity limits. The casino will be permitted to reopen at 50% capacity, and event venues for wedding season will be able to open and host some indoor receptions, of course, with capacity limits. This is an important milestone because it will also permit so many businesses to get back into operation or ramp up their operations for the summer. Now, collectively, we've done the work and we've made it through 16 months of uncertainty and anxiety, and we can now start the process of returning to normal. And I want to start today by thanking the leadership team at the City of Windsor for the months and months of work that they have put into our local pandemic response. As well, to the City of Windsor employees, especially those who have been redeployed in support of our efforts in the community, we all owe you a huge debt of gratitude, and I'm really, really thankful for the work that folks have done. In fact, the City of Windsor, the staff have mobilized very, very quickly, and over 400 staff were redeployed. They were redeployed to support the mass vaccination clinics, to local charitable organizations like the Unemployed Help Center, and to help with screening and cleaning activities at Huron Lodge, just to name a few. This week, we begin the important work of offering the municipal services that we were known for pre-pandemic, specifically the recreation programs that we're now able to reopen. And as we move forward this summer and into the fall, our approach will be to gradually return to service. For almost 16 months, many of our facilities have been closed to the public or have been repurposed for other needs. And just because the province of Ontario is moving to Step 3 on Friday, it doesn't mean that all of our facilities will be ready this coming weekend, and we also won't be stopping the important community partnerships that we have put in place. So the WFCU Center continued to operate as a mass vaccination clinic. However, we are working with the Windsor-Essex County Health Unit, and we can now confirm that the WFCU Center will stop operating as a vaccination site on July 31st, at which point we will begin the process of preparing the facility for the fall ice hockey season. 80 Knox Herman is on loan to the Unemployed Help Center, and Gino Marcus Recreation Center is currently being used as storage and sorting space for this year's Miracle 27 food drive. Capacity limits will also limit our ability to reoffer some programming at other municipal recreation facilities. At the same time, city administration needs to call back staff, and in some cases, such as our lifeguards, we need to ensure that we have adequate recertification and training done, and that will take a period of time. Finally, a major unknown will be the public's interest in returning to indoor community centers, arenas, and pools. And like any service-oriented organization, we rely on interest from the public in offering our programming and amenities. So we will continue to consult with the user groups and the general public to make sure that we are matching our services to local demand. Our commitment is to ramp up recreation and cultural programming and constantly monitor the demand to make sure that we are creating the activity spaces that Windsor families expect. And in a moment, Ray Mensur, the Acting Commissioner of Parks and Rec, will outline the specific plans associated with the return of our recreation programming. Before we get into those specifics, I want to turn the floor over to Chief Steve Lafferette, who has led our city's pandemic response task force since March of 2020, and he has spent evenings and weekends and really every waking moment keeping our team rowing in the same direction. And Steve, without all of your personal efforts, we would not be in the same position that we're in today. So my thanks goes out to you and your entire team. And I'll turn the floor over to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. So I'll start with just a brief overview of where we are with the community and what our efforts have been to date and where we're going in the future. So right now, our numbers in our region look very, very good. Our case incidence per 100,000 population is 0. We've seen a number of days where our net number of cases is actually a decrease due to some data cleaning. So that's all really good news. That being said, we continue to watch the variants and as they move through Canada and through North America. And we remind everybody to make sure that even as we move towards step 3 in an easing of some restrictions, there are things that remain in place, such as mask wearing and social distancing. So we remind everyone, please adhere to those as best you can. As for our response to the pandemic, as we've progressed through the pandemic, our response has remained pretty much the same, and we continue to meet with the community control group, and we've looked at this in a two-pronged approach. On one end, we look at what the city is doing to make sure that we're providing the services that we can that are consistent with the restrictions that are in place, and we plan for the next steps that may change when a provincial announcement comes down the road. We also monitor what's happening in certain areas of the community, and we've had a number of areas where we've assisted, and we've done a number of different projects and initiatives. And those things are the Isolation Recovery Center for the agri-food sector, another Isolation Recovery Center for the homeless and shelter population, and high priority neighborhoods. We've seen some really good progress in those areas. Even though we continue to operate a dedicated isolation and recovery center for the agri-food sector, we've moved from where we were last year, where it was very busy at or near capacity on a number of occasions, to where now we're seeing a much reduced demand, and we've had maybe just a handful of people in at any given time, and some periods of time where we've had no one. We'll continue to keep the Isolation and Recovery Center open and consult with the health unit as to when we may stop those services. But right now, we do have funding in place until March 31st. And as we progress and things get better, we may see that we'll stop those services prior to that. Social services continues to work with the shelter and homeless population and with the high priority community neighborhoods. And we are offering a isolation recovery center for that group if needed. Again, we've seen a decreased demand, and we'll keep that in service as long as it's needed, and then make the decision to close or alter what we're doing based on the data that's available. City staff have, as the mayor has mentioned, have been redeployed into a number of different areas. And I just want to highlight some of the numbers that we've been able to assist with. At the WFCU Mass Vaccination Center, to date, as of yesterday, city staff have worked with the health unit and Windsor regional staff. And at that site alone, we've helped vaccinate 67,757 people. And at the Windsor Hall site, prior to the move to the old Sears building, we were involved with helping vaccinate 36,474 people. We've also had an opportunity to operate and assist in running a call center with the help of Windsor Regional Hospital staff and health unit staff. And to date, we have received and answered 106,710 calls and made 29,673 outgoing calls. The next step for CCG is to continue to prepare for our move to step 3 and then our move to an eventual return to normal. And we also continue to monitor any hotspot areas and are still in a position to respond if we see any flare-ups in any of the areas that I mentioned. As we progress towards normal, in addition to those steps, we are now moving into our recovery phase and are going to be working on an after action report and really taking the lessons learned to this point and building on that and creating a more robust plan in the event that we ever have to go through this again in the future. So that's my update for today. Thank you very much. I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
Well, thanks very much, Chief. Appreciate that update. And next, I'd like to ask City Solicitor Shelby Askin-Hager to provide an update about the changes that residents and employees can expect at City Hall in the weeks ahead. And Shelby has spent most of the last 17 months dedicated to managing the logistics and operations of the city's pandemic response, including coordinating with external healthcare partners such as Windsor Regional Hospital and the health unit, as we have deployed hundreds and hundreds of staff. And I would say that all of the praise that I put on Steve at the beginning when I introduced him, I would echo the same amount of praise for Shelby for the hard work and the efforts that she's put forward on behalf of all the residents in our city and our county, trying to get the vaccination efforts underway and make sure that it's a success. So Shelby, thank you for all of that hard work. We appreciate it. And I'll turn the floor over to you now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. As you've heard throughout the presentation so far today, the city is taking a measured and gradual approach to reopening services and facilities. And so with respect to those services that you would traditionally access through City Hall at our downtown campus, appointment-based service is going to continue to be available to you right now as the best way to make efficient use of your time while keeping both you and our staff safe. Outside of downtown, you're also going to be able to head into the parking building at 1266 McDougall or the Parks and Rec main building at 2450 McDougall on a walk-in basis. But appointments are still encouraged and recommended there as well, so that we can get you what you need and get you on your way as quickly as possible. We're going to continue to monitor things as they develop and watch how we progress through stage 3, but there'll be more updates for you as we move into the future. Both the mayor and the chief have made reference to the work that's been undertaken by all of our staff during the last 16 months, but I want to take a moment here to give it specific emphasis that it really does deserve. At the onset of the pandemic, our staff found themselves facing very sudden changes. Perhaps the jobs that they did every single day suddenly became much more challenging and in some cases much more dangerous. In spite of this, they ensured that city services were available to you to the greatest extent possible. Many of our staff, however, weren't doing their own jobs at all anymore and were redeployed across the corporation and the community to do things that they had never done before and to work in areas that they'd never even seen. Some days they went to different places each day, often learning about their new assignments with little or no advance warning. They took on roles in the isolation and recovery centers where they dealt with the ill and the fearful, and they took jobs supporting the homeless population at the H4 site at Waterworld. They packed and distributed millions of pounds of food for the Unemployed Help Center for those in need. They worked day and night at the temporary shelter set up at the Aquatic Center for a population at risk. They still head out on the road every day with our mobile support team run by the EMS and Erie Shores Healthcare. They have set up and they have run mass vaccination clinics, in one case setting it up and getting ready to go within 5 days. They offer this vital service to hundreds of residents each day, and the feedback is delightful from everyone. They work in the call centers, they support here in Lodge. They take time on the weekends to do some of those outbound calls that you heard about earlier. The list goes on and on. Some people even volunteer to work to support this effort on top of their usual work days. Many people have not been back to their home jobs since last February. And yet all of our staff have met the challenges posed by this pandemic with grace and creativity and perseverance. And they have been the heart and the soul of this organization's response to the pandemic. They embody true public service, and we thank them sincerely for helping all of us get to this point so successfully. And we look forward to continuing to work with them in the brighter days that lie ahead. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Shelby. Appreciate those comments. And now finally, we'll add more specifics to my earlier introduction regarding municipal services, and Acting Commissioner Ray Menser is here. He'll be touching on the current plan to ramp up recreation and culture programming. And Ray eagerly stepped into former Commissioner Jan Wilson's shoes when she retired earlier this year, and he's in an acting capacity right now, but he has not missed a beat. In fact, his team continues to find creative ways to deliver the services while remaining consistent with provincial pandemic regulations. And we're very thankful for all of your efforts, Ray, and I'll turn the floor over to you now.
Thank you, Your Worship. As mentioned, our recreation and culture team is extremely excited to gradually reopen our facilities to the public with less restrictions in step 3 of the reopening plan. So as far as community centers, our day camps at Capri, Forest Glade, and Windsor Waterworld are currently operating, but beginning next Monday, July 19th, we will begin floor and gym rentals at Capri Pizzeria Recreation Complex, and rentals will be expanded to other facilities based on demand. Also, city-run programs for adults and children will resume on September 13th at Capri and WFCU Center, which is in line with our traditional fall programming schedule. Once again, programming will be expanded to other facilities as required, based on demand. When it comes to arenas, We are in the process of making ice as we speak at Forest Glade Arena, and we will have one ice pad available for rentals beginning on Saturday, July 24th, so next Saturday. The second ice pad will be ready for bookings on September 20th in order to accommodate the day camp program, which is currently operating. In addition, 80 Knox Herman, WFCU Center, and Capri will have at least one ice pad available for ice users beginning on September the 7th. The process to begin making ice at 80 Knox will begin once the important work of the Unemployed Help Center continues as they continue to assemble food hampers on the arena floor, which will end as of August 1st. But they still plan on handing out prepackaged food on Tuesdays and Thursdays between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. from the 80 Knox Herman complex. On a related note, the ice making process will begin at the WFCU Center community rinks on July 31st once the mass vaccination center consolidates its operation to the Devonshire Mall. Furthermore, the main bowl at the WFCU Center will be available for the start of the Spitfires training camp, which is scheduled to begin at some point in September. And finally, the second ice pad at Capri will be available beginning September 20th, again after we accommodate the day camp that's currently operating. As far as aquatics, once the outdoor pools in Sandpoint Beach close in early September, we plan on opening the WITC and WFCU Center pools for fitness lane rentals, aquafit classes, as well as aquatic leadership courses, which will begin September 13th. Once additional staff can be hired, trained, and certified, we plan on opening Adventure Bay later this fall. When it comes to culture and events, we plan on opening the museum this fall in line with in-person learning to the classroom. In addition, we plan on offering a modified version of Open Streets, which will be dependent on several factors, including the number of volunteers available. Also, the city is also planning for the return of the ever popular Bright Lights event in December. Of course, all of these services are contingent on the provincial regulations not becoming more restrictive and that the redeployed staff are able to be recalled to our department. We are very proud of the work completed by our staff as they have contributed to various important efforts across the city, which were mentioned earlier by everyone. That being said, we continue to work diligently with our partners to recall staff and gradually reopen our recreation and culture services to our residents. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well, thanks very much, Ray. Appreciate that. And that really is the last of the speakers. So Dana, I'll turn it over to you to take questions from the media. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor Dilkens. Thank you, panelists. Now, members of the media, if you are interested in posing a question to the panel, take this moment to raise your hand using the button in the lower tray of your Zoom screen. The first question is coming from Brian Cross. Brian, go ahead, enable your microphone.
Oh, hi. I'm curious if there's going to be any requirements in terms of people being double vaccinated to use the programs at the facilities as they reopen?
Brian, I can start with that. We are reviewing best practices in other municipalities and working with our peer municipalities to see what options are available to us. Obviously, bearing in mind that the obligation to receive healthcare or make a medical decision can't really impact on someone's ability to access services. So we're going to try to balance the individual rights and freedoms of people with what is being done and what can be done to protect the public and following along with what's going on with our peer municipalities as well.
Is there going to be any sort of just urging people to do that, to use the facilities?
Well, I think we as a municipality, along with our partners at the Health Unit in Windsor Regional Hospital and Erie Shores Healthcare, have consistently been urging the public to take advantage of vaccinations, and we can certainly take this opportunity right now to encourage people to get their first and second shots.
Brian, thank you very much. Our next question comes from Katie Fraser, CBC News. Katie, go ahead, enable your microphone.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm just wondering, as people are re-entering the workforce, we're seeing some staffing shortages, some Windsor businesses are saying, and I'm wondering if any city services are worried about any staffing issues that may potentially happen.
Go ahead,
I can start. Ray would probably have some comments specific to recreation. We do, because we've been dealing with respect to the office work and the administrative work that we undertake. Many of those folks have either been redeployed or were continuing working in their jobs. So we don't have shortages in that staff, but with respect to ensuring that the vaccination sites get staffed, even as we consolidate and perhaps rec staff, I will certainly ask Ray to provide further comment on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Katie. And further to Ms. Askenhager's response, as you may recall, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had to lay off all of our part-time staff, which, over 16 months ago. Therefore, many of them were recalled, but many of them also weren't available. So at this point in time, we do have a shortage of lifeguards. So we are in the process of recruiting. And as mentioned earlier, we need to train them and recertify them before we can begin operating. But we are actively hiring people as we speak. That way we can resume operating as demand begins to ramp up.
Thank you so much. And if I can just ask, Mayor Dilkens, have you gotten any update about our border crossing?
Nothing new to report. I'm hoping we're a week away, so I'm hoping very soon we'll have some information. Clearly, it's an important issue for people in our community. They want to be able to reunite with their families. And certainly we want to allow that cross-border traffic to happen of at least fully vaccinated people, so it has an impact, a positive impact on our businesses here as well, recognizing that our casino, our largest tourist attraction, is reliant on 30% of their visitors, for 30% of their customers come from on the other side of the border. So it's an important consideration. We'd certainly like to see some movement at the border in a structured way. Clearly, the first path would be for those who are fully vaccinated, and I'm hopeful that an announcement will be forthcoming very soon in that regard.
Thanks, Katie. Next question comes from Christy Lee Varley, AM 800. Christy, go ahead.
Hi there. I'm just wondering, when it comes time for the aquatic center to reopen and some of those recreation facilities, I assume that will be on like a capacity basis. So will you be requiring appointments for people to say, I want to come during this time slot? I'm just picturing a family packing up, okay, kids, we're going swimming, getting down to the aquatic center and then finding out it's a capacity. And then they have to wait, I don't know, half an hour or an hour or whatever.
Thank you for the question, Christy Lee, and it's a great question. So at this point in time, everything is still being done by appointment. So whether it's a rental, they have to book the appointment and screening is being done by the group, or whether it's a fitness lane rental in one of our aquatic facilities, everything is still based on registration. As the pandemic continues to evolve and hopefully restrictions do lighten, we will continue to monitor and adapt accordingly. But at this point in time, everything is still based on reservations.
Follow up?
That's good. Thank you.
Great. Thanks very much, Christy Lee. Any other members of media interested now in posing a question to the panel before we wrap up? Please take a moment. Use the raise hand function on the Zoom screen. Seeing nothing more. Thank you very much for that participation. I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor Dilkens.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you, Ray. And thank you, Dana. Do we have another question?
We do. Just in time under the wire there. Maureen Rive, Blackburn News, apologizes. Looks like she's having some technical difficulties. But do you expect to launch regular recreation programming like swim lessons, dance classes, and more?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, we do intend on resuming our programming in the fall, come September. I believe the date was September 13th, is our estimated goal date to resume, again, based on registration, to resume our dance classes and those type of programming in all of our facilities.
Right under the wire. All right, that's it for our Q&A session. Thanks very much. Mayor Dilkens, you were saying?
That's it. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you, Shelby, Chief, and Ray for being here. Appreciate it.
Much appreciated. This recording of the webinar will be featured immediately following this conversation on the City of Windsor's Facebook page for anyone that was not able to tune in live or wishing to share the content. Thank you all and stay safe. Goodbye.